This is a Purple Line Express. This is Merchandise Mart. Doors closing.
Welcome to the Wyzendale weekly wrap-up where we talk about architecture, design, everything in between. Today I have a special guest. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm David Gallo from Egan.
Yep. So, David, we met years ago when you were in another role, but how did you get into this industry? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'll go all the way back.
Yeah, go back.
I started right out of college, or shortly after college. I actually got into commercial real estate. Oh. And I was far too young to be in commercial real estate.
Okay, yeah.
It's basically like show up, here's a phone book, make phone calls. And my memories of it are getting sworn at on the phone, because it's like you're essentially a spammer.
Yeah.
Or getting a meeting and showing up to the meeting with like some C-level guy.
Yeah.
Who was just disgusted at the fact that I tricked him into having a meeting with me. Like, those are my two memories of
You
that.
probably didn't even have any facial hair. Just
I didn't have
clean
any facial
shaven.
hair. Yeah, it was like, so that's how that was like my essential sales training.
Yeah.
That I had very little success with.
Yeah.
That said, I got called by somebody somewhere when movable walls were really coming into, at least to the Toronto market.
Okay.
And they were looking for commercial real estate people who could introduce walls to commercial real estate people. So I'd like to say I got headhunted, but I kind of just was the right age.
Yeah.
And the right
sort
of, I guess, makeup of what they were looking for. And that was my intro into the industry. I did walls presentations for, I think, 5 years at a dealership, a Hayworth dealership. And then it was... no looking back. As we say in the industry, once you're in, they lock you down.
Yeah, man. It's funny, the cold calling experience. When I first moved to New York in, I think, 2008, I did a short stint I was just looking for a job right at the time, the market crash and all this jazz. And I was looking for a job, and I did a job at a Wall Street firm. Like, it was something where you would call like the Irish markets at like 6 a.m. to like 10 a.m. or something ridiculous, 5 a.m. or whatever. But it was the same thing, just hammering the phones. And I think we were trying to sell some Visa, and I'm just going to dive into this real quick. I think we were trying to sell a Visa that had a microchip in it, if I remember correctly, because that was like my pitch, right? But yeah, man, earning your teeth on something like real estate and cold calling, like, I always heard, we were talking about my short stint at Human Scale, and when I was there, they would always say, the best salespeople are the copiers, people who come from the copy world,
that's right,
and rentals, car rental dealerships. So, and I don't know why, but yeah, man, I mean, learning the sales. So that's where you cut your teeth, is as far as the real estate and cold calling and things like that.
Yeah. And just to talk, I had a friend who did photocopy sales.
Okay.
And when he was in it, this is like, we're way off topic, I know, but
no, this is good. This is what we're doing.
He got into it, and because his friend was making like, big six figures constantly.
Yeah.
And he got into it, and he couldn't do anything. He couldn't sell anything. He was on a draw. Like $20,000 a year. Mm-hmm. He was about to get married, and we would, we were playing soccer in the summers together just for fun. And he would be like, I don't know what I'm doing. This is the worst. Like, I go in, people don't, and somewhere like quickly he just like found the switch, and so he just became this like monster photocopy sales guy. And he ended up being like the number one guy in Canada. And he's got the personality. He's like a jovial, fun, But I was like, he is the best sales guy I've ever worked with.
Yeah.
And I never worked with him, but like just chatting. But you're right, that is the industry. Like, if you can handle the nose.
Sorry about that.
You can handle the nose in person, face to face, from like reception, and then like whatever, office manager, and then you can handle like a no.
The nose. I mean, I joke around in my personal life about how people don't like to hear the word no. It's like, it's important to hear that word. Yeah, like, it's important to hear no, or to fail. I mean, it's not really failing, but just to hear someone tell you no. I think it's important for people to learn that, even in their professional career, for sure.
For sure. And, we talked earlier, we've got young children. Like, that is like...
Yeah, right.
It's not only the first word they learn to say, I think, but, like, that's the first most important lesson. Like, don't do that.
Oh man. Yeah, and the, I guess the sales aspect of it, like we just recorded for, just quick shout out, click on the link above to hear David's introduction to who Egan is, and it's definitely well polished, and you knew the product, and I think understanding what you're selling is super important too. And I guess at Egan, like how do you guys like educate yourselves or understand what the product is and where they're from?
Well, I'll go one further. I'll
Yeah,
go back
please do.
further. So
Yeah.
we were, as the dealership goes, when I was selling walls, I was like raw. I was raw into that job as well. And like, you do the presentation enough times, you make it sound like
Yeah,
you know what's
right.
going on. And then the technical details or the technical questions come, and I was stumped, constantly stumped, which, whatever, it was reflective sometimes, and sometimes I got away with it. And then I moved on later on in life to Hayworth, the manufacturer. And that is like, I think from that side of things, the people who really know what's going on there still can't know it all. It's too much.
Yeah.
But kudos to them, because they do great work, all of the major manufacturers. With what we do at Egan, we're lucky enough that we've got a simple product, and it's when we build on it, it's, I wouldn't say it's easy to know, but there's a whole bunch of complexities that I didn't know existed within the writable surface market when I joined Egan. And some of that, which we did in the promo, that stuff made it fun to learn.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, though, it's everybody has a whiteboard somewhere on your fridge, in your office, whatever it is, and all of those pieces, those ones don't really matter. You usually write a grocery list down, or whatever. But the complexities of what the Egan product offers is more. It's not necessarily about the product; it's about how you can help people use it in their space. And sometimes it's not really even for writing; it's projectable, or it's privacy, or whatever it might be. And there's all of these things that, again, as simple as they might sound, they do kind of, they turn a light bulb on for your customers if you can show them that, like, matte glass might, save somebody in a private office from, making faces at their computer, whatever it might be. It's just something simple like that, like some of these products, if you don't have it pointed out, you'll never know what they do.
Right.
And I think that's what's been interesting in the learning process of not only getting to know the Egan product, but how to position it. I don't know if that really answers the question.
Yeah, no,
an
it does for
interesting part
sure.
of what this is.
Yeah, no, it's and I guess in Canada, I guess what is the, obviously, like I this is a loaded question, but like what is the main difference between Canada and doing business down here, right? And I guess there obviously there's similarities, but I would think that there's kind of cultural differences as well.
Yes, and without offending anyone,
Yeah, right.
especially back home in Canada, the Canadian market, Toronto specifically, is very, it's Americanized. Sorry, Canada, nobody wants to hear that, but it's Americanized. Toronto is, people watch the NFL, and there's a football team in Toronto that plays in the CFL, and people care about it, but they don't, like, we get Buffalo News. It's like,
Gotcha.
The rest of Canada, though, they still get American television, the rest of it, but I think they're a little bit more, with there's the sitcom stereotype of, they say A a lot, jokes like that can go on, but that's the true Canada. Toronto doesn't really fit into that. And Toronto's a very multicultural, immigrant-friendly city. So a lot of the people who live in Toronto who haven't been Americanized they're not even Canadianized. So it's a cool market in that business is there to be done, but it comes from everywhere, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I will say, in my time, I used to live in Chicago, and what I found interesting, as soon as I got here, phone calls were just like easier to make. And I always used to think, like, I think people in America are more interested in, like, doing business, or at least, like, acting like they want to do business. Like, it's one of the two, depending on who you call. And not to say people in Canada don't want to do business, but it was a more friendly phone call here. And, I don't know, maybe people don't have time in Canada. They work harder. There's a Canadian plug. I don't know if that's true either, but I don't think that's what it is either. But there's definitely more business in the States.
Okay.
I mean, the population is
for sure.
there's 38 million, I think, in Canada. There's 350 million here.
Couldn't even tell you.
Something like that. Yeah. So it's like it's massive. It's
I just know the mass in Canada is more spread out than how condensed it is in America.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like we've got basically the business centers are Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, depending on the economy, because a lot of gas and oil out in Alberta, and Montreal. Yeah. And then otherwise it's beautiful tourist centers, and they're big cities, but they're not like, if you go to the East Coast, you've got like New York, Philly,
Boston, Philly. Yeah.
They're all right there. Yep. And that's like that's the whole Canadian economy in a stone's throw of each other. And we were talking about California even. It's like, I think the population of California is the population of Canada.
Oh, wow.
And Canada is the size, it's bigger than America.
Right.
We've got like all this space, and it's just uninhabited, I think. Anyway. I think that the way people do business is different, but Toronto is very similar to what. Yeah. Long-winded answer for you. Toronto is very similar to, especially Chicago. Yeah. Size-wise, the way it's built, it's all Great Lakes cities, stuff like that. Yeah,
I got, like I told you earlier, I got to get out to Toronto. I hear nothing but good things, and definitely got to visit. And I guess like your approach, obviously having a sports background, or do you refer to yourself as having a sports background?
Sometimes, depending
on
who I have to try to impress. Who am I talking to?
But that's important, right? Like I think currently right now our intern Claudia, shout out to Claudia, shout out to the whole Wyzendale team as well. She plays soccer, and she's from Barcelona, and she plays down at IIT, cool. Right? Yeah, and I think that was a big. I think it's. I mean, I would say I have a sports background, but like I played sports, right? And I think that it definitely it sort of gives the individual a certain characteristics, right, within professionalism, within themselves, right? And I guess, do you see that translating a lot into your kind of work style and your attitude or approach, I guess?
I guess now more than before. Okay. And with age comes experience and confidence and all that kind of thing. Yeah. And as I was an athlete, and I would say as I got to the prime of my athletic career, I probably got more confident and all that. So from a leadership perspective, I think that really helped develop that confidence that was maybe built in my late teenage, early 20 years can now be I can look back and it's better reflected, I think. Because when the hockey probably got me my first job. Yeah. In real estate. Yeah. It was very much a boys' club. And
I'm probably pretty sure it probably got you the job.
And this guy used to play hockey, and he have all these stories. So
time out before you dive in. When you were in real estate back then, did they all wear the vest back then too? Like all the brokers? No, is that a new thing?
Yeah,
okay.
No vest, but lots of suits, and it was and I know we bounce around, but the hours were so weird because it's not it's not like trading, right? Which I've never been a trader, but you see on the movies, you show up at 7 a.m. or 5 a.m, you work till midnight, because there's markets everywhere, right? You can trade in China, whatever. Yeah. Real estate, you don't trade real estate, but it was a competition. Who could be there earlier? Who could stay late? And people would just be, on Yahoo Mail at the time. That's how long ago it was. People would just be emailing, but you had to be there. Yeah. Or telling stories. But that, I think, is probably what got me my first job. But when I got there, I was probably a very confident person in my early 20s, mid 20s from hockey. But then I get thrown into the mix with all these, semi-successful, very successful real estate people, and I turn into a shy guy all of a sudden because.
It's intimidating. How do you compete?
You make no money. You got to listen. So I think it takes some time to build up. From the sales side, I think most of what I've learned sales-wise has probably been from the companies I've worked for. But the confidence and I think especially the leadership side, both from being led from guys who were older than me in hockey, and then taking that role on myself is probably the most benefit of what I do now, I think. Yeah. We attended the real estate awards last week in Chicago, and it's broker city, right? And you could just feel it in the air that it's just this aura of brokerness, right? Yeah. And because it does take a certain sort of mentality to work in real estate and to find the deals and to
to make that money, and it's it's interesting. It's an interesting animal for sure.
Yeah, and I mean it fits in well with what we do.
Yeah,
I mean you more than myself, but to go into a space and like just see like bare bones, and like I think they see it in a different way. They certainly see some dollar signs for themselves, but I think just to know what it takes to like you speak to somebody about how big their organization is, and then you've got to go try and find this like box or L shape or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And hopefully they can picture something in there, and then I think it's even then you guys go in and actually make it look like probably something better than what they wanted it to look like. But I think that is the true challenge of them, as much as sometimes they get a little bit of a rep for some ego or whatever it is. It's probably deserved because it is a grind.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
if you
definitely.
Can pull out especially some of them make some big dollars.
Yeah.
And if you
Can you explain the draw really quick for people who may not know, for millions of listeners, like how to work off of a draw? Because because real estate is always off a draw, right? Sometimes sales roles are
at the start,
yeah.
So I guess essentially they guarantee you real estate anyway. They would guarantee you a very small amount. I don't know what it would be today. Hopefully it would at least cover the cost of living with a roommate or something, but it's not very much. And most of that is to like help support, but I think most of it is to like, it's a motivational thing. It's like, because they'll give you $30,000, let's say, pay you bi-weekly or monthly, whatever it is, and then you have to pay that back in commissions. And I think oftentimes, I know my friend we were talking about in the photocopier business, if you were on a draw, then you didn't get paid as much commission either. So whatever he was making, if I don't know what they make, like let's say they're 100% commission, he was making like 50%. So it was like they wanted you off the draw. They wanted you to do so well that you told them, get me off the draw, and then we can actually pay you more money. That was the photocopy industry. The real estate industry, though, I think, and real estate more than photocopiers, because I think a photocopier, the goal is to like sell them every day. At a real estate function, that you're going to be there for like, unless you're either really lucky or well connected or just amazing, it'd probably take you like at least two to 3 years to like really have some traction and start closing some smaller deals. And there was one story that went around everywhere when I started, and I've heard it, I don't know, 50 times. Let's say 1,000, probably 50 times for the first year I was there, and they were like, don't give up. So and so, he closed this deal his first year. He made $1 million bucks.
The carrot, the dangling of the carrot.
Oh my God, he made $1 million. So anyway, I didn't make $1 million my first year. So
and I mean a lot. You mentioned about it, the network, right? And who you can talk to, like in your network, and who you know of, and being in Toronto for so long, and being in obviously coming here into Chicago, I guess, knowing both of those cities, I feel like your network has really expanded as well.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'd like to think so anyway. And I think, well, you could probably speak to this too, because you moved around a little bit, as have I, and I think it just looks. It may not even be a benefit, but people are impressed by that, which I think that's a good thing if you know what you're talking about, which I think I know what I'm talking about for some things. But that's sort of a door opener. Yeah. It's like, oh, you lived in Chicago. Like you must have either done something really well to get there. Yeah. Or at the very least, you're like, you've just done this thing. Yeah. And I think it's, similar, like you move to Europe or you go on holiday, people in Europe want to talk to North Americans and vice versa. Yeah. Whenever I hear anybody with an English accent, I'm like, oh, hey, like,
interesting perspective.
Talk about
there.
Yeah, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah. No, and I think all of these things, add to the individual characteristic to the characteristics of the individual. Sports, traveling, right? Like all of that's important because you want that diverse mindset or perspective to go into projects or to go onto teams for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and it all adds to the experience, which whether it's relevant or not. Like, the question of where is it easier to do business? It's like probably nowhere. Just like it's all a grind. Right. But it's still, there's some experience I've had in Chicago that they might not help me get business in Toronto, but they're probably helping me deal with not getting whatever it is,
Yeah.
or getting something, or they've influenced something that has made it a plus.
Yeah, and so with your experience in Egan, I mean, you guys, are you guys doing anything for Neocon this year? Or how's Egan coming about right now?
Well, I'm not supposed to say.
This will probably come out around Neocon. Jesus. So, yeah.
It's actually been a very interesting year for Egan in that regard, new product development. To go a little bit more into what Egan was acquired by a company, a local Toronto company in, I believe it's 2017, and the ownership group have just like improved all of the processes and everything that's gone on in that office for the last 6 years now or so. Mm-hmm. And one of those things has been what is going to happen this year at Neocon. And I don't want to get too excited because, I don't want anybody to be mad at me for that. But the evolution of the company, I think, everything that is on the walls within the showroom is, premium.
Yeah.
Egan does premium product. But, I mean, there's only so much you can put on the wall. And I will just say that they're going to come off the wall this year.
Gotcha, nice.
And not necessarily as a whiteboard or any of that, but there has been some very good ideas that have been flowing and building, and there will be a much different release than what we've been doing over the last couple of years. With in the last couple of years there's been some good stuff, like the slider that we have here has been, with people were asking for it for long before I ever got there, and this was something the engineering team came up with. And then, there's different shapes and finishes and things of that nature. But this year, and we're not getting into chairs or anything like that, but it's a good evolution to what, a collaborative space could be.
Yeah.
One thing that we do say, we are the collaborative space experts.
Gotcha.
AV rooms, lecture halls, things of that nature. And this will fit, I think, very nicely in there.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I know when designing the showroom 2 years ago, we went through the whole product list, and you guys definitely have some great offerings, and it is a premium product for sure. I guess how was COVID, for Egan or for yourself? Like, what was that experience like before COVID, after COVID? Because I think you got there right before COVID, yeah?
Like a couple years before.
A couple years before, yeah.
And I'll tell you a story about the showroom within COVID. So, I think everything closed like almost today, right? Like, what's today? Today's the 16th.
Oh yeah, it is.
So basically, 2020.
Yeah.
Today in Toronto.
Yeah.
Everything closed.
Wow.
Because I remember St. Patrick's Day, they were all the bars and everything. They were all ready.
Yeah.
They were all ready on the 15th, and they couldn't.
I think here in Chicago they kept them open, obviously, because I think nobody wanted to be told what to do, and so it kind of like slowly happened, and then April everybody was shut down. But yeah.
So it was basically today in 2020, and so I was in Toronto, but I was still traveling, and everything was shut down. But at the time, I was just about to be married to my wife, who was living in Chicago, and we'd met in Chicago and all that. So I got back across the border on, let's say, February 15th. We were in this showroom tearing it all down. We had a whole bunch of stuff, which I don't know if you'd ever seen it then, but there was a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah. When we took over, everything was everything was in disarray.
Yeah, so we had basically taken everything down, and with the hope that we're going to get rid of it in a month. And so nothing really looked very nice from the outside, but it was a month, and Neocon was coming, and all the construction projects were going to start, so we weren't that concerned. Anyway, fast forward to April. I get across the border. I'm coming to see my fiance, and I come to the showroom. There's no paper on the. It looks like there's been a riot in the Mart, except only in the Egan space. So anyway, we called the Mart. We had them put up all the paper, and then that was so I was basically living in Chicago through COVID.
Gotcha.
And coming in here every day to work.
Yeah.
With brown paper on the windows, and that was like that until you guys came in and did that, which was in what was that, like September of 21, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So basically, like, let's call it 14, 15 months.
No, it might have been before, because that was when the Mart did their little like half Neocon. Right?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
something like
in
that.
October, I think, right?
Oh, yeah.
So maybe it was
yeah.
like July you guys came.
Yeah,
but
something like that,
So,
yeah.
so it was somewhere like 13, 14 months.
Yeah.
That, if you're walking around and you were interested in this space, maybe you didn't even know Egan was here, but you were like, maybe we can have this space because there's obviously nothing going on in here. So that was basically the Egan showroom through COVID was just in complete lockdown. Because had it even looked like this, it could have just been closed.
Right.
Nobody would have worked here, but we had just torn it all down.
Yeah.
And so there wasn't a lot of use going on in the showroom. But we were traveling a lot before. We're on the road quite a bit. And obviously that stopped because of restrictions and vaccines and all that stuff.
But like there's production and like new product launches. Did all that pause as well, or
maybe a little bit?
Okay.
The factory, we were lucky, and as were most manufacturers in Canada, if you were essential business, manufacturing qualified. So there wasn't really an interruption in the work process.
Gotcha.
And we were fortunate in that the best, like a lot of some of the day-to-day business went away because companies just weren't working. Yeah. But there was a lot of large projects that had been paid for before, and like the RFPs had been tendered years before, and there was a lot of big business that came in, which was a nice, every now and then you got a nice big, like very big project through COVID, which I think that for me that was the most surprising because it was, where's it coming from? But it was nice to have. And, but it was business as usual, and I think Egan is in a way. I mean, it's fortunate because it's an open line.
Gotcha. And
we do business in a lot of the states that didn't really believe in COVID. Yeah. Which, to each his own. I'm actually happy they didn't because like a lot of especially the southern states, they did very well for us through COVID. They didn't, not only did they not wear masks, they didn't stop doing business. So I think that was a nice thing, which hopefully a lot of the other manufacturers had those same bumps in business or maintenance of business. But
that kind of is how North America is at the moment. Like Canada's one thing, Northern America is one thing, and then Southern America is like a whole other thing for sure.
Like she's still my fiance, but we went down to Texas for a wedding. Okay. And it was like 2019. Like it wasn't, nobody was, which, I felt bad. Like I'm wearing a mask, get off the plane, nobody's wearing a mask. Yeah. It's like peer pressure. I'm like, I got to take this mask off.
For sure.
Like, but I've just been wearing the mask everywhere. Yeah. They said I have to wear the mask. And I go down and I'm like, I'm not wearing the mask. People are mad at me for wearing the mask down there. If I don't wear a mask in Toronto, people are mad at me. It's like such a weird. It was a weird time. It was definitely a weird time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think and now, seeing everything right now, I feel as though, like when I'm riding the train, I mean, like I was riding a train the other day and everybody's still masked up and I didn't have a mask on, but you're so close to everybody. I was like, fuck, I should probably have my mask on. But, I do think that businesses are starting to rethink about coming back to the office or what that's going to look like, because now it's like sinking in for sure. Like, there's no more COVID. Like people are still getting it every spotty, but what is everybody going to do for work now? And summer's coming around. I think everybody's set tight for winter, but it should be interesting to see.
Yeah, I agree. And it's I was actually having a conversation about this yesterday with my Uber driver coming from the airport. And it's even the idea that you can work from home is absolutely true. Mm-hmm. I mean, even I used to joke with some friends, like when the BlackBerry came out, you could get your emails at home all night, but nothing ever changed. Like the real estate guys still went to work at 7 a.m. Right? Yeah. They stayed till 7 at night. Like you can do all this from anywhere. I guess my hope with the return to the office is just be around people. Like hopefully people are not wanting to be less social. Yeah. Because, the office, whether you like your job or not, hopefully you at least like the people you work with. And that, gets you out of the house or whatever it might be. It's like
the human interaction.
Human beings are supposed to interact. And if you don't want to go to the office, that's one thing. But at least if you it was nice to get downtown and see, all not to say the restaurants shouldn't have their patios on the road, but it was like, okay, like Chicago now it's like, it looks like it's back. Yeah. Maybe that's just a winter thing, but. Right. because Toronto Toronto did that before COVID with the restaurants. They kind of gave them some street presence.
Nice.
On some of the streets, and that's been a good thing. But through COVID, the restaurants probably didn't do as well as here because different restrictions and all that kind of stuff. But just the interaction part of it is hopefully why people will want to go back to the office.
Yeah.
Even if it's like 3 days a week or whatever it might be. But you just want to see people.
Yeah. I think the 3-day week I think is going to be here to stay for sure. Like it's I mean, you can just get so much more done and you feel so much more free. And I guess for our rules, like I guess I know you were talking about working in your basement for quite a long time, but like you're kind of out roaming, right? Like we're out like just in the field. Someone told me today, like, oh, you're in the field a lot. I'm like, yeah, like I'm in the field the whole time. And the field just being loosely like the city or just out and about. Whereas, typically in our industry, if you're working on CAD or Revit or whatever, you're just pumping away these drawings, right? And you're sitting there and, you could do that from home too, but you're just like locked into your office or locked into a home thing, right? So I think technology and everything has now evolved where it does give the people the ability to be mobile for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Like the idea of Teams is it's so natural now.
Yeah,
you're like, well, let's just get on a Teams meeting. And like, okay, how many more Teams meetings do you want to do?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Are you a camera on, camera off guy or?
Either depends.
Yeah.
Who I have to speak to. Yeah. I think that idea too of like being around people at the office when you're emailing is like you don't need to do it.
Right.
And like I found through COVID too, so much of it is email, and as a salesperson, again, maybe this goes back to my background, but as a caller, I don't really do a lot of cold calling anymore. But just if something happens, you want to talk on the phone. But I feel like email, in some regards, has sometimes turned back into like the old MSN chat. Like people will send like, do you have this? And you have to write yes. Like, do you have you have to write put some info in the email.
Yeah, exactly.
Which again, I think that's just come from being locked up. But if you come to the office to interact, you go home, you do your heads down work and do your emails, you do your CAD work, whatever you have to do.
The cold call.
Do your cold call for your basement.
That's a wild. I mean, I feel as though like right now I tell the team sometimes when there's urgent things that need to be said, like you need to call this person. Like there's no more email. Like we're at the point where like you have to call them to get an answer because we need this by like Thursday or whatever it may be. Yeah, and some people are uncomfortable with that for sure. For sure, and I mean the phone is such an easy communication tool. But I don't know what you guys are like, but like emails, like some days you get like you get 500, 600 emails in a day. How can you respond? And I try to have a rule, especially when I'm on the road. I won't check my phone for email because I'll look at it and then something else will happen, or I'm like walking on wells or something, and then I just put it down. And then once it doesn't light up anymore, that email is dealt with, but it's not replied to. So it's like I try not to do that. But like you said, sometimes you have to. Yeah. You can't leave all those emails in your inbox either. Yeah, no, you cannot. And I guess personally, like, what's the plan for 2023? Do you guys? Are you guys doing like personal goals as well as business goals, or what's the outlook look like? We're 3 months in now.
Yeah. I think company wise, full financial information for everybody. Egan operates on a fiscal year that ends in May. So the joke at the factory is 2024 starts on June 1st.
Gotcha.
So we're already done with 2023.
Yeah.
But no, I think a lot of it has to do with like COVID recovery. There's so much, which I'm sure everybody has the same type of thing. There's projects that have been on hold or canceled and restarted. And, from a financial or goal perspective, I think it's like, hopefully some of that stuff just like pulls itself through, because it's like the more that's in the funnel is obviously better, but more that's in the funnel is like becomes difficult to manage at times. But as people get back to the office, and I'm certainly no expert on this, I think like September. That's my guess. If you want a prediction, that's my guess.
Yeah, there you go.
Because like I think people right now are trying to figure it out. It's like January, February, March, trying to figure it out. maybe by June, July, they'll have a plan. And then from the Egan side of it, we kind of go in either right at the start or right at the end. The contractor handles us, we go at the start.
Yeah.
The client handles us, we go in at the end. Which I think, probably September, October, I think that'll be things are really back to normal at the office. I don't know if I'm right. We can revisit that in another conversation.
Right.
But yeah, it's like we've got some big goals for Neocon with what we're going to launch. And I think the word normal probably used way too often in the last 3 years, but I think that's really the goal of like get back to normal, just not necessarily have, sort of the ebbs and flows and ups and downs of what, I mean, the market is sort of dictating now. And then previous to that, it was pandemic and there's not really a recession maybe right now, or maybe there is. And all this uncertainty is, I don't even know if that's an Egan goal. I think that's just like an everybody goal. Just like, let's get some stability in here and
for sure.
And start doing business. But I think to our point here of like, Chicago, it seems to be back to normal, at least from, the guy from Toronto walking around the streets. Toronto's getting back to normal. In my other travels, I was in New York in November. That seemed to be probably not as far along as the people in New York wanted to be, but Broadway was open and people were out and about and interacting.
Nice. Yeah.
Maybe not so much at the office, but because that was the other my last joke of the day maybe, but like it was funny when people were getting requested to go back to the office. They're like, "Do you want to come back to the office?" And they're like, "Well, I don't really feel comfortable." And they're like, "Oh, okay, like, well, I got Bears tickets. Do you want to go to the Bears game?" Like, yes, like, all the NFL football games were rammed.
Yeah, right.
Like nobody's working. It's like, okay, well.
Yeah, go to that.
Yeah, and that's the best way. Why would you want to go to work? Go to the Bears game.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway.
Nice.
Yeah.
And where can people follow Egan and check them out?
Yeah, so Egan.com. Egan's got an Instagram page, which I believe is @ Egan Visual.
Cool.
But Egan.com, which if you check it out, today is March 16th. We have a current website. I think the beginning of April, we'll have a brand new website. So
nice.
Check it out today. Come back and check it out in April.
There you go.
And you'll be pleasantly surprised.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate you joining and hosting, and look forward to catching up more.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Cool. Thank you.
This is a Purple Line Express. Doors closing.